Welcome back to Careful Boys. Yes, that's true. Your eyes do not deceive you. This
Aloha.
is actually Tulsi Gabbard.
Joe lives in Hawaii right now.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Where about?
Kaka'ako.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, me and my fams, we decided to open up a little tea shop in Waikiki, and yeah,
What's it called?
Jumbi.
Very nice.
Yeah, please come by.
Now,
I'd love to. I'm going to be in Hawaii next week, Friday. Be there
Oh,
for a little while. How do you travel back and forth?
Hawaiian Airlines twice a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
do you do that too?
Yeah, I've been doing the commute thing for over a decade. From Hawaii to DC when I was in Congress.
That's crazy.
Do you get
Back and
recognized all
forth.
the time? Because we get recognized all the time.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can give me some tips because it's happening more and more lately.
Say sure thing.
Yeah?
Yep.
Smile, take the picture.
yeah.
All right. Just be nice.
Do you fly like Air Force One? Like,
No.
Okay.
How do you-
I'm lucky if I get an upgrade, my friend.
but you've been on Air Force One.
I have not.
You haven't?
Actually, no.
I was going to ask if you took a napkin. That's what people tend
No, you know they take the napkins and they take the little M&M boxes.
I've seen that.
With the presidential seal on them.
to do. So cool.
I've been given them by other people who've ridden on Air
That's
Force.
like, I got Chiefs confetti from a buddy. Makes me look hella cool.
Is it like a microscopic like Chiefs logo
Yeah, just
on the
like, yeah,
confetti?
barely. It's half torn. I'm like, I think it's probably not
Hey,
legit.
put it up on the wall.
Yeah. So you're here today because you have a book,
Yes.
For Love of Country.
Here it
out,
is.
Out now. It's out.
It
about
is
to be.
available for pre-sale now. It is called For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. And this is a pretty massive election year, 2024, not only because of a presidential election, but really with everything that's going on in the country. And so I left the Democratic Party at the end of 2022, and I'm an independent. And this book really tells, it's not a memoir in the sense of like, here's my life story. Those books are generally pretty boring, I find,
Agreed.
especially for people in politics. This chapter by chapter really tackles, to me, a lot of the major issues that we're facing as a country. And my experience of having been in the Democratic Party for over 20 years and the shift and transformation that party has undergone over that period of time. And how they are, in my experience, undermining some of the most fundamental principles that make us who we are as Americans and that make this country what it is. Things like
what attracted
freedom.
you to the Democratic Party before, and what has changed, or what has it become in your eyes now?
Yeah, you know, I was 21 years old and I ran for the state house in Hawaii.
Wow.
And I made that decision really because it was a choice of either, okay, I'm very passionate about protecting our environment. Hawaii's a beautiful place, beautiful oceans, mountains, and I grew up outdoors. And I saw at that time a lot of politicians in our state who saw their job in the state legislature kind of like as a post-retirement gig, kick your feet up on the table and, you know, go hang out with the boys and drink and smoke cigars after work. They didn't care about a lot of the problems that I was seeing in our state. For example, they had a big landfill developer that wanted to go build a landfill over one of our major water aquifers on the island of Oahu. And as you know, we have a few of them on the island, but this one in particular served 30% of the population, which is roughly 300,000 people. Building a landfill over our water drinking source, I mean, you know, I'm not a geologist, but I know that that's a pretty bad idea.
How do you know about these smart things when you're 21?
How did you figure that out?
Well,
What's the secret?
I heard what was going on. I heard what was going on, and even as a teenager, you know, I don't know, I was 17 or 18 at the time that this was going down. When I heard about it, people were like, hey, we got to collect signatures to stop this. Because there was a politician in the Senate who was greasing the wheels for his landfill developer friend and campaign donor, saying like, hey, no worries, bro, I'm gonna make sure this is rubber stamped and gets through, which is exactly what was happening.
It's a Captain Planet villain like plot though.
Right, that's exactly right. But in real life, and so that's where I was like, well, this doesn't make sense, and I need to do something about it. And so I was just like, I was gathering signatures, and we were trying to get the word out about this, and it worked, and we stopped it. We stopped it.
Who tried to stop you?
Nobody's tried to stop me.
Okay.
But there
was there
was a
pushback?
lot of money behind the landfill developer who gave a lot of money to politicians who were willing to either help the process or at a minimum look the other way, hoping that no one would find out about it.
Right.
People did find out about it across the island and were rightly concerned. And so for me, it was a really eye-opening moment to see, hey, this is how the process is supposed to work.
And I can make a change.
And I can make a change. I'm 17, 18 years old, 19 years old. And to be one little small part of this movement of people saying, no, we're not going to let self-serving politicians poison our drinking water. Water is life. You cannot, none of us can survive without water. So
I can
that
get by
was
pretty good on these though.
for a little while. For a little while.
And Vietnamese coffee.
There you go. But that's what got me interested in running for office. And so I was 21 and I was either going to go back to school and, study politics, political science, whatever, or actually I was living in Eva Beach and there was an open state house seat. And I thought, you know what? Why talk about it when I can be about it and actually do it? And so it was an open primary election. There were 5 of us running, all of us running for politics for the very, very first time. And I outworked everyone, and I knocked on every door in that district almost 3 times and talked with voters. I didn't know what I was doing politically. Like, I had no training. I was very shy and an introvert, and it was not something that came naturally to me, but I was very passionate about my purpose.
Was this before military service?
Yes.
So you became a politician before?
Yes.
Wait, at 21?
At 21. And so to your question, Bart, about why the Democratic Party, it was when I was filing those papers with the Office of Elections that I had to decide which party am I going to run with. And for us in Hawaii, our state is a very strong Democratic state, but it's rooted in the history of our state where you had wealthy Republican landowners come in and essentially build plantations all across the state, ship in a whole bunch of immigrants to come and work the land, treat them like crap. And it was the ILWU and unions and Democrats that came in and said, you know what, this is not cool. We are going to fight for you. Immigrants from Japan, the Philippines, Vietnam, Portugal, people from all over the world coming to Hawaii for opportunity. And so they fought for them, they won, and that's when the state shifted from being in Republican control to Democrat control, which it remains strong in Democrat control today.
Yeah.
But to me, the Democratic Party represented the party of the people. And it was a party that cared about the environment. It was a party that welcomed people from all different backgrounds, different views, different religions, a party that celebrated free speech, even if they didn't necessarily like what you had to say. And those were things that I really aligned with. Traditional liberalism in the context of JFK and Martin Luther King. And that was in 2002. Fast forward to where we are today, 2024, 2022, 2020. What I saw and experienced when I ran for president in 2020 on the Democratic primary, and what has happened since has completely flipped the whole thing on its head, where the Democratic Party of today is the party of the elite. They are the party that is questioning whether or not we should have free speech in America anymore. It is the party that in this White House is directly and indirectly censoring people through big tech whose voices or statements are things that they don't like. And they do this in the name, like slap a label of disinformation, misinformation, hate speech on this in order to justify this. But ultimately, and this is what I go into in my book and what I'm sharing with people everywhere I go, is we have to get back to the Constitution. I don't care what party you belong to. I don't care whether you and I, we can have conversations about issues, but in order for us to be able to have those conversations, we have to have freedom of speech. We have to have the ability to express ourselves in whatever way we choose, on whatever platform we choose. We have to be able to have confidence that our privacy and civil liberties are being respected by the government, and we don't have, warrantless surveillance or search and seizure and all these different things that are happening. And that is what is on the line in this election. And that's why I left the Democratic Party.
Do you have a chapter about being a Russian asset?
I talk about it a lot in the book. There's this person. You may have heard of her. Her name's Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
A couple times, yeah.
Yeah. So
People go missing around there. Yeah.
I've heard the same.
30 people, I think.
Yeah.
Nervous.
So she popularized that line of attack.
Yeah, big time.
Which is just, it would be laughable if it wasn't effective. And it really broke my heart. I've served in the Army, National Guard, and Army Reserve now for over 20 years. I've deployed to 3 different war zones. I served in Congress for 8 years on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs committees. I'm willing to die for our country and for what we stand for. And to have her and so many other people parrot this line, essentially accusing me of being a traitor to the country that I love, which, by the way, is an act punishable by death under U.S. Military Code of Justice. They do this because it works, and they try to foment suspicion and I don't know about her because I heard she's I don't know, something about the Russians, even if people don't even know what it is.
I have seen that. It's really weird.
And it's still, this was back in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
I still hear it.
Wow.
And it's
You
on
heard it from
social
me.
media. You scroll through the comments on any, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're at Dick's Sporting Goods buying running shoes or something, you'll see people go, Russian ass.
Yeah. Probably not Dick's Sporting Goods.
More like Big Five.
Yeah, actually bent.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you know. It was a test.
Yes.
Different demographic.
Different demographic. Exactly.
Hillary wouldn't have known the Dick's Sporting Goods thing.
No.
No chance.
No.
She'll play sports game.
When you entered into politics as a 21-year-old, and did you have a shock to the system when you saw how it wasn't for everyone thinks what happens is face value, what people say and whatever. There's no kind of I don't want to say deception, but
Look deeper.
there's things that actually work, right? And then there's what happens.
You can
on
say
TV.
deception, though.
Right? Because
These things are said with the intent to deceive.
Right. Okay.
And to deflect and to distract.
And when you got in there and you saw that, were you what? How did you react to the realities of politics?
So this, at least in my time in being involved with politics, this whole, people run smear campaigns all the time in politics. Unfortunately, it's been a part of politics for a very, very long time. And they are usually done because people don't want to actually address the substance of issues, or they don't want you to pay attention to something that you really should be paying attention to instead. And that's where this whole Russian asset thing gets thrown out. Not only against me, you see it against Donald Trump, you see it against Bobby Kennedy, you see it against Rand Paul. People from all different political backgrounds who have the audacity to challenge the quote-unquote power elite in both parties.
How come they don't smear them back?
Mitt Romney has accused me of the same thing.
I saw that.
So this is not just about Democrats bad, Republicans good. It's something much bigger than that to your point is intentionally used to deceive people because they won't have the debate. And we'll use the Ukraine war as an present day example. Rand Paul Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky tried to introduce an amendment to a major multi-billion-dollar funding bill that would go to Ukraine in this proxy war that we're waging against Russia. And his amendment was very simple. It just said, it's a well-known fact that the Ukrainian government is very corrupt. And if we are going to send this money, American taxpayer dollars, I think it was a $40 billion bill at that time, to Ukraine, we should assign an inspector general to keep track of where the money's going.
Sounds common sense.
Why don't we have an auditor in the first
I
place?
think both parties
Yes.
voted for that, right?
Both
happy
parties,
to.
and this is coming after over 20 years of trillions of dollars being spent on wars in Afghanistan, which our own Department of Defense admittedly lost track of a lot of money.
Trillions with a T.
Trillions with a T. There was an inspector general assigned specifically to Afghanistan that exposed that money that was lost, unaccounted for, or went to kind of the war profiteers. So anyway, this is a common sense request to make. It wasn't, it did not have bipartisan support, shockingly.
Wow.
Leaders from both parties said, no way, how dare you, Rand Paul, you are a puppet of Putin.
Whoa.
And so rather than say, hey, let's have the conversation about accountability of taxpayer dollars, fiscal responsibility, and if you want to make the argument for, hey, here's why this money is so important at this time. First of all, why wouldn't you be for making sure it goes to where you want it to go? They don't want to have the substantive debate, and so this is the throwaway line that they use.
Why don't we get the same guys who are so good at tracking my taxes to do that?
For real.
IRS guys are pretty good.
Down to the dollar.
So damn good.
When they come after small internet companies, man, they comb through everything.
Of course. And they'll charge you interest if you're not on it.
Is there I've always wondered this.
Yeah.
Is there like an order of who votes yay and nay, and they shuffle the deck kind of so you don't get too much pressure on one politician?
As far as how the vote is called?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
There's not. In the House of Representatives, in the Senate, there is. I believe it's alphabetical.
Okay.
Because when they actually call a roll call, and so they.
I'm sorry. I mean, like, do the heads of the parties, do they go, hey, you already took a lot of heat for voting yes on the last bill. We want this bill to pass. You can say nay. It's okay on this one.
Both parties do that on occasion. So they'll have members of Congress who usually it happens when you have members of Congress who represent what they call the swing districts that, from one election to another often goes back and forth. One year it's a Democrat, the next election it's a Republican, the purple district that they call. So if they have someone who, has taken a tough vote or taken a hit, then sometimes they'll say, okay, yeah, you vote your conscience and we will allow it. But this just speaks to a bigger problem. I see the expression on your face, we will allow it, which is exactly what it is. They have people who are designated as whips in both parties on the House floor whose job it is to quote unquote whip the votes. Go and actually count and talk to people, hey, how are you planning on voting on this? So the leadership knows in advance, okay, here's how many votes we can expect, which, is fine. Figure it out. If you want your bill to pass, you got to have an idea of how many people support it, and you can go and try to convince those who oppose it to change their mind. But the dirty part is when they don't have the votes or when it's a close vote, it's when the leadership in both parties goes, and I can speak for the Democratic side of how then Speaker Nancy Pelosi would literally chase people down on the House floor, looking for them to make sure that they voted her way or the way that she wanted them to vote. And it is oftentimes done with the threat of, hey, if you don't vote with us on this, then, X millions of dollars the party had set aside to help you in your reelection campaign is gone.
Who tells you
We're
this?
not going to be there for.
Who's
I've
like,
seen
hey,
it.
Tulsi? Like,
I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Yeah, but you obviously were not like a fan.
No.
Like Pelosi didn't like you very much. Right?
I never in all the campaigns I've run, I served in the state house, the city council, in Congress, and ran for president. I never had any party support in any of those campaigns.
Got it.
And so unlike some others who have relied heavily on that party support, that leverage exists.
Is that why when you came in, you started getting hit from all, like, as soon as you came in, you started getting hit?
It was pretty quick. There was this odd thing that surprised me when I first got elected to Congress. They didn't, I mean, naturally, they didn't know who I was. I was serving on the city council at the time, and so what they saw was, hey, here's a Asian Pacific Islander woman, 31 years old, veteran of 2 deployments to the Middle East, kind of checking a lot of these boxes. And I was invited to go speak at the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte that year in 2012 during prime time. I had won a primary election. I was not yet truly fully elected. But I was invited by Pelosi called me one day and she's like, hey, we'd love to have you come speak during prime time in front of, a crowd of, I don't know, 18,000 people and to millions of people at home about veterans. It's like, awesome, what a great opportunity. And then I got to Congress, and within a couple of weeks, I got a call from the White House. This was Obama's reelection, his second term, saying, would you say yes if you were asked to serve as vice chair of the DNC? That was exactly what I said.
That's a huge, yeah.
And my literal response was like, "What is a vice chair of the DNC? Like, what do you want me to do?"
I still don't know.
Like, we just made it up for you.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Can you say, can I sleep on it for a couple days?
No, I did actually. I did. I was like, let me learn more about this. And then I got a call. I don't know. It was a couple months later to my office from Vogue magazine. They're like, we want to do a profile and a spread on you. I'm like, what? Why? What? Like, there were all of these things happening that I did not seek out, nor did I expect. And at the convention, someone played a clip back for me recently. There was someone on MSNBC like, or maybe CNN, I don't know. They're like, there's this great new member of Congress from Hawaii. I think so-and-so should play her, like some famous actress should play her in a movie, like all this stuff. I'm like, what is going on here? But then it was short-lived because, I think they expect people to go and come and fall in line and be a good soldier and, do what the party wants you to do. And in August of that year, it was 2013, President Obama announced that he wanted to go and launch an attack in Syria in what would be the kind of first volley of attacks in a regime change war to topple the regime in Syria. And long story short, and I go into this in detail in the book because this was why I ran for Congress. As a soldier, I knew and understood firsthand what it meant to have politicians making decisions about war and where we as service members are going to go and put our lives on the line, who really didn't care about us and who didn't carefully think through what is the cost and consequences of this decision in the short term and the long term. From a human perspective, from a taxpayer perspective, what are the unintended consequences we may run into, even if you have the best of intentions? What are we really trying to accomplish? What does winning look like?
Sounds like what
How
Assad
do we
would
know?
say.
How do we know when it's time to go home? President Obama said he was going to come to Congress and seek authorization to go and take this military action. I was a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. This was in August of that year. I went and did all of my due diligence, came in with an open mind to hear their case. Went through all the briefings, looked through all of the intelligence and information that they shared, and ultimately came to the conclusion that this would be a bad idea for our country, that it would very likely spark off yet another quagmire in the Middle East, that we could potentially be stuck in for who knows how long, and that they had not been able to answer these most simple questions that I just went through. They couldn't answer them. They're just like, it's nothing gonna happen. We're just gonna go deliver a punch in the gut and then we're gonna go home and send a strong message. So I came out and I said I'm against President Obama's request, and here's why. Immediately got a call from the White House within 24 hours saying, how dare you go against your president? Wow. How dare you, as a freshman Democrat in Congress, you just got elected
That's what they call you?
A few months ago, yes.
Wow.
How dare you go against your president? So that was the first sign to them that I wasn't just going to go along to get along and be a quote-unquote team player.
We're taking Vogue away. You're not going to be on Vogue anymore.
Exactly. Anna called me back after that.
Go figure.
You know,
Crazy.
The biopic's canceled.
And that Cheerio sponsorship, forget about it.
We're going to have more on Tulsi being an Assad apologist when we, in the next video. We'll be back.